Now, there's a lot of things I want to talk about with our next guest, Dan Bongino, who, again, is running for political office in his state, and we should all support him. But first off, I wanted to get an update from him just overall since he resigned in disgust, which we're seeing more and more of, people in the military, people in defense contractors, people in Homeland Security, Secret Service. They just cannot be part of the shadiness that Staff Sergeant Biggs was just talking about. And they just can't be part of it. And it's kind of a catch-22 because then the good guys are out of it, so that kind of leaves the bad guys. But overall, it's the right moral decision to make. But I wanted to ask him, what does that mean as there's an exodus of people that you would call pro-America, pro-liberty, pro-common sense? And again, he's running for Congress, ladies and gentlemen, in Maryland. And he joins us, and we're going to give you his website as well. He's running for Maryland's 6th district. And I want to call him Congressman right now. And I'm told they know you're a threat. I'm told you got your house burglarized. So that shows that somebody's certainly concerned.
Yeah, it's not the first time, Alex. And thanks for having me, by the way. They've targeted my cars. My wife was 8 months pregnant, and someone put nails in 2 of her tires. And 4 of my campaign staff, same thing. And campaign headquarters broken into. But you know, that's kind of what they do, and I just roll with it. You know, I'm 6'1", 215 pounds, so I'm more worried about my family than I am myself. But, you know, that's what they do. It's thuggery at its finest, and unfortunately, when you speak out and you stand for liberty and you stand against, and you know, I just want to make this one point. It's not just against the Obama administration. I think you know this. There are Republicans out there, too, who
absolutely
couldn't care any less about liberty. There are some out there who care more about their own power than liberty, too. So it's a bipartisan indictment of the system, but you definitely put a target on your back when you do that.
Absolutely. And Scripps Howard News Service, AP, you name it, have picked up all the burglaries and harassment that you're going through right now. I mean, that right there is the certification that you're the man right there, and the campaign's going well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're shaking people up, we've got a few left-wing outlets come after us. For everything from shocker meeting with conservatives in D.C., a left-wing media outlet went after us and said, yeah, he meets with conservatives in D.C. to advance conservative causes.
How horrible.
Scandal. You know, that we had some meetings with another journalism outfit, too. I mean, they make up stuff. It's really terrible. And, you know, if you only knew, folks, what went on behind closed doors, I mean, you would be disgusted if you think this government revolves around a citizen-centric model and that public service is a priority. And I've got bad news for you. You're living in a fantasy land. I mean, there are some good people out there, don't get me wrong, but they're very few. And you mentioned it in the opening of the show. More and more people are just turning up turning their head in disgust and walking away and finding out, not walking away from making a difference, but walking away and finding out a different way to shake up the system, because it is unquestionably broken.
You know, I know you saw a lot of things, and you signed national security agreements, so you can't talk about it, or you'll go to jail like a whistleblower. But I mean, when you talk about the dirty deals behind the scenes, we've got a good idea. It seems like the corruption's so rampant now, they don't even get in trouble. I mean, you said it was the speeches and things was one reason you left, hearing Obama basically push stuff that Mao would push. But I think that's obviously the main suspects. It would be other, feds coming in because of what you do know. Aren't you in probably danger because of some of the things you saw? You may not even know what they were that's got them concerned, why they're breaking into your house and your car and places like that. I mean, my question is, if I knew all the stuff you knew, I'd probably go ahead and just say it, because then I think that makes you safer is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not a bad point, but, I did swear an allegiance, and my oath means something to me. And outside of the things I saw which were blatantly unconstitutional, which I have no obligation under my oath to the Constitution to keep quiet, outside of those things, obviously they're personal things, I keep quiet. But, this isn't faux bravery on my part. I mean it, Alex. I'm not sitting here trying to sit there and pound my chest. But I just don't worry about it that much. I mean, my family and I took an enormous financial hit to do what we did, to walk away. My FEC records are public. You can look yourself. We certainly didn't get rich off any of this. But the country is at a turning point. I mean, I mentioned this last time I was on your show. This is a real turning point. Not one of those fictional turning points where people just like to rally you up. Oh, we're at the turning point. This is it. I mean, we are moving down one of these paths where your liberty is being treated like a commodity you can't exchange. It's traded amongst people and faux party officials and insiders and cronies, your liberty, and yet, oddly enough, the one person out at the table is you. So, you have to say to yourself, when you're someone like me on the inside, and I honor and I respect the Secret Service agents who, these guys and men and women are fantastic. They put their lives on the line, in a heartbeat for the president and everyone else they protect. But I just didn't. I felt kind of like a parasite, like I was, just sucking off the system, and that I wasn't doing everything I could do. And I kept imagining a eulogy in a world that was different than the world we know today, for the worst. And someone saying, "Well, what did he do to change it?" And then my kids looking up and going, "Well, I don't know." Well, Dan, I can tell you right now, they're not going to have any problem answering that question now.
Dan, I admire you so much. I don't say that to be sappy, because I've gone through some of the same things you've gone through, the break-ins, the physical attacks, the death threats, where they're listening to your phone and tell you what you were talking about so you know it's the government or contractors. And for people that haven't experienced this, they don't know. And people say, aren't you scared? Why do you go, out in public? Why do you go do the things you do with no bodyguards? And you know what? It's not even about being afraid. I've chosen a side, but it's not even choosing. I'm not a thug and a criminal. I'm not a scumbag. I'm not part of their gang. I don't even have free will, really. I have to confront and oppose these people. And I think that's what you just crystallized there, is that, you're not beating your chest saying, I don't care, I'm not scared. It's beyond courage. It's, you cannot commit the world to evil, and standing down is joining it. Silence is consent, and you will not be part of the dark side.
Yeah, I mean, we're being ruled. We're not being governed anymore. What made this country great and exceptional, different than every other place in the world, is the respect and the dignity of individual liberty, a constitution that limited them, the government, not you. But I think what, unfortunately, a lot of the soccer mom crowd is ignoring is the fact that your liberty is really disappearing in real time, and it has a real consequence, Alex. I mean, look at your economic liberty. What do you think taxation is? If you work for $100 a year using round numbers, and now upwards to 47 to 50% of it is taken by the government through sales, income, capital gains, corporate, all these other taxes, then 40% of the time you work for someone else. I mean, that's not liberty or freedom. When you look at Obamacare, do you really think that was about health care? Seriously, do you really believe that was about health care? I assure you, having lived in this bubble, it had nothing to do with health care. It has everything to do with taking away life or death decision-making away from you and putting it in their pockets. I mean, we've never had any kind of education liberty. Public school system doesn't say,
it's death panels. It's socialist, eugenics, absolutely. And it's buying and selling our liberties, trading them away. I want to get into the Benghazi situation, because you're somebody that was the head guy when Obama went overseas. So you know exactly what went on there, and it's coming out missiles to Al-Qaeda and the stand down. But before we go there, let's right now make this important. You put it on the line. You didn't talk to me before you came on the air. You were coming on about the embassy stuff. I'm saying this now. Everybody in Maryland needs to stand with Dan Bongino and his family and get him into office. This is a real guy, folks. You can feel it. You can see it. Your gut tells you. We've got to put this guy in Congress with an overwhelming vote to overpower their electronic voting machines. These are the type of people we need there, who have a conscience, that's their most valued possession, is being honorable. And how do people donate? What's the best site to go to? Bongino.com?
Yeah, thank you. Bongino.com. I appreciate that, Alex. Thank you.
No, people, but they need not just donate. They need to come out and support you in Maryland. I'm reading the campaign's going well. You're getting support.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. Last time we ran, we started with nothing. I had 2 donors, me and my father, and we built the largest donor list in Maryland, one of the largest donor lists in the Northeast Corridor. I mean, we really fired up a grassroots base. And, it was funny, Alex, people would say to me when I would give speeches, because, I never wrote them. I would just go out and speak from the heart. And people would say, wow, I've never heard anything like that before. And I said, that's the sad part. That all I did was just tell you the truth, and you thought it was good. It wasn't good. It was just unusual, because you're so not used to hearing the truth from people that when a guy gets up there and speaks with some passion about what's really happening, you think it's, quote, good. There's nothing good about it. It's just the truth. The truth has no agenda, and we just built a massive army of people. So starting this time was obviously a lot easier than last time, where we had to build it from scratch. Now we have a solid base of support. We have a huge social media following on Facebook and Twitter, and it really helps me get the liberty message out there. I try to tweet and Facebook about liberty at least 2 or 3 times a week, and it's never scripted. I come home, I'll usually put on some music, and I will just go and tell people how I really feel and what I saw and what I think is really wrong, and importantly, how we can fix this disaster we're in now.
Absolutely. And folks can go to Bongino.com and find your Twitter, find your Facebook. Everybody should follow you there. In fact, I'm going to tweet out during the next break from Real Alex Jones at Twitter for folks to follow you, and I hope listeners. Libertarians and constitutionalists don't tend to be big Twitter people, but we all need to become big Twitter folks, because sometimes I'm out there in the field, and that's all I've got to get a message out. And the same thing for Mr. Bongino. And the fact that they're coming after him, breaking in his house, his car, harassing his family, right there, folks, we just had on Staff Sergeant Biggs with all the other Special Forces guys that were friends with Michael Hastings, who know they killed him, and they're all scared, folks. And it just shows how dangerous this is. But if they put a bullet in me, I want 10 more to stand up in my place. If they put a bullet in Bongino, you've got to do the same thing. I mean, enough is enough, folks. The war for this republic is now. Now, shifting gears, speaking of bullets, they put bullets in Ambassador Stevens. Knowing what you know about embassy security, a lot of it classified, running foreign operations when the president would go overseas and visit embassies, what is going on from a trained eye when you see that?
Well, what I found out about this is there's been communications between al-Zawahiri in Pakistan and in Yemen. One of the main AQAP operators in Yemen. But the brazenness of the communication strikes me. Here's what I mean. These guys are very, and I don't mean this qualitatively, please, but they're very savvy in a devious way with their communications. They've learned everything from using drop boxes in emails that don't formally send it. All kinds of, I don't even want to give anybody else any ideas, but ways to manipulate cell phones so that they can't be traced. They are very savvy in that respect. The fact that they likely knew they were being monitored, which of course they know, and brazenly made these kind of communications, knowing it was going to get out there, says to me, from having gone through this over and over and having read volumes of intel reports and overseas ops, was that this was really in the end operational stage, and any fear of having the operation broken up was probably not really, didn't frighten them enough to communicate. This thing was ready to go. But the problem, Alex, is I don't really trust this administration anymore with their information. And they've lost all credibility between Benghazi and we don't even know what was going on there with potential gun running. I mean, they really don't have any credibility. The only thing that makes me believe this could be really credible, and I hope it's not, is that a lot of the foreign embassies have shut down too, and we're usually pretty reluctant, especially after Iraq, to be sharing information and intel with foreign embassies and foreign governments.
Sure. Well, I mean, Obama's bad enough, and I know they'll crucify you if you agree with me. He's bad enough, and even the New York Times says these terror alerts are being used for political purposes to distract from NSA, to turn a blind eye and let some jihadi group fund it up the chain. They're funding them in Syria and Libya to attack a few embassies as a political distraction. This could also be a false flag Obama's about to pull.
Well, this NSA thing, they need to get the attention off this thing so badly. And I cannot believe, I mean, really, there's a part of me that is having a hard time digesting the fact that there are people who call themselves Republicans out there who actually support this program. You know, folks, information in the hands of a government without an independent arbiter reviewing it. Remember, the Constitution, secure in your effects, right? Without a warrant or an independent, because I don't consider the FISA court, it's a rubber stamp, okay?
Former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, stay there, sir. We're going to come right back to you and have you finish that point on Benghazi. Dan Bongino, senior Secret Service agent until he resigned. He ran the overseas operations. That's the most important thing the Secret Service does. When the president goes anywhere, is the overseas visits. They see that as the most dangerous, at least from what I've read in the newspapers. And you were telling me some stuff off air about your sources in the Secret Service currently. I don't know how much you can say on air, but just say what you can about Benghazi, where it's going, about the current threat, and the points you were making about Obama's credibility.
Well, first off, you have an extremely loyal audience. Thanks to those who just followed me on Facebook and Twitter. That's a record, considering I've been on a number of radio stations. That's a record amount of Facebook likes in the last couple of minutes. So thank you, folks. That's very nice of you. Yeah, a lot of my intel and military sources have been talking to me over and over. I have a book coming out in November on this topic. And folks, if you don't believe there was a stand down order here, really, you're living in a fantasy land. I just hate to tell you this, but there's a team out there, Alex, FEST, Foreign Emergency Support Team. Here's an analogy. Imagine with the Secret Service, God forbid something was to happen to the president, right? No one has to be told in the Secret Service to respond. You just go. That's what you do. Well, that's what the FEST team does, the Foreign Emergency Support Team. They've responded to these types of incidents before. Why they didn't respond to this should have set up red flags everywhere. It was brought up in the Capitol Hill testimony, and the media has largely ignored it. I wrote an op-ed piece in the Washington Times about this because I've got friends who have been talking to me about this. These guys were told not to go. There is no question in my mind this was politically motivated. I hate to tell you that, folks, but if you're ignoring this, you're ignoring it at your own peril, because that fabric of security that those guys, Secret Service and DSS provide, has been absolutely shredded. The cavalry always showed up in the past, and that promise has been broken. That's very dangerous.
Why would they do something like this to show their hind end to everybody in the government? Because the whole Pentagon knows it was a stand down. They watched it from the Predator drones. The ships all know. I've talked to a lot of people off record who were able to even see it. Some major fits were thrown. People resigned, major generals, you name it. Why would the Obama administration do something like this, protecting the jihadis there in Benghazi?
Well, there's only two explanations here, folks. One, they are the most incompetent administration in presidential history and literally didn't know what to do. So we already know he went upstairs to the living quarters without any resolution to the incident whatsoever. So that's explanation possibility number one, which I don't believe. The second explanation is they knew exactly what they were doing, and given the proximity to the presidential election, they could not have out in public that, one, there was a terrorist attack, and two, their foreign policy in Libya had collapsed, and three, a CIA operation was going to be uncovered. So the second fork in that road is that they knew exactly what they were doing, and for political reasons, they let these four guys die. Folks, bad news. Either one of those answers is horrific for any leader.
Either one is treason, and either one is completely criminal. And now CNN, London Telegraph, they're all reporting CIA people have told them that, no, we were giving surface-to-air anti-aircraft missiles to al-Qaeda.
Yeah, and al-Qaeda, a lot of this doesn't make sense when you think about it. And there have been some people hinting around this now that, why, if we were running these guns and these surface-to-air missiles and these advanced weapons to Syrian rebels who were embedded with al-Qaeda, I don't think anybody disputes that and knows what they're talking about at least, why would al-Qaeda, through Ansar al-Sharia, attack the complex? There may be an Iranian Hezbollah axis here that a couple of people are starting to hint around to, which would open up a whole different can of worms. But again, you can't trust anything that comes from this administration. They've blown all their credibility. I mean, they put Jay Carney up there.
You know, that's an interesting point. Stay there. We got to come back to 5 more minutes with you, and I appreciate your time. Iran does not want those missiles getting into Syria, because once Syria falls, Iran's next. That's actually an interesting point. That's what your sources are saying. That could be what's going on?
Yes, because it doesn't make sense, Alex. Why would al-Qaeda attack an operation funding al-Qaeda in Syria? It doesn't make any sense. The vested interest is with the
unless you want to get rid of the ambassador and the witnesses. You know, I could talk to Mr. Bongino for a long, long time. He is so interesting. Dan Bongino. Bongino.com. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. But I'm going to get him back for a full hour here in the near future so we can take phone calls from folks. He's a very interesting fellow, and he can tell Secret Service stories that aren't classified. And I've got stuff like Maryland. They've got a rain tax and stuff. I mean, this is just shows the insanity. He's running for Congress there. You got cut off by the break. We only got 5 minutes here. You were getting into, as an investigator, the forks in the road. And that's exactly what I've done with Congress people and other investigators and FBI people we've had on air, and you name it, is that in an investigation, there's no doubt there's a stand down. There's no doubt they're lying. And then you just have to look at the facts. It goes from bad to worse. But go ahead and complete what you were saying.
Yeah, and the nonsensical statements by the administration and frankly, some of the folks in the in the upper ranks of the military who've said, well, we don't send people into, and these are not the rank and file military guys. These guys are really upset. They're the ones you're probably talking to. I know the ones that are calling me. These are the guys that wanted a response. That, we don't send troops into, the unknown. Really? Not that you already sent the ambassador and these these three others that died, these patriots that died over there into the unknown. So you don't send our military in, guys that want to go in to save them and protect them when their mission is to wrap themselves in the flag.
I mean, it's total bull. As you said, the default, if a submarine sinks, they launch the submarine rescue crew. It's default. Or if the president's attacked, the Secret Service goes into action. Or the State Department has their units. It's just a total lie.
Folks, you're being manipulated. I don't want to sound conspiratorial here or scare you, but there is a crop of people, this tyrannical group of insiders, crony capitalists, politicians who only care about the next election, consultant class folks, and elected officials, some from both sides, that their only interest is in preserving the system. Their only interest, why have we, think about it, Frank Wolf's initiative to move this special select committee forward to get subpoena power on Benghazi. Why hasn't everyone in Congress signed on to this? What, you don't want? That's because you don't want the answers. They don't want to tell you the truth. You're being manipulated to a
just like on NSA, it turned out Congress knew about it all, went along with it. They wanted to act like they didn't know. They have a name for this. It's organized crime. It's a gang. But oh no, that can't, there can't be gangs in our government. Yeah, there can. Historically, it's called tyranny.
Right, and Alex, if this NSA program was so fantastic, right, and it was worth collecting data on every single American, by the way, which is an absolute travesty. Don't tell me it's constitutional, okay? That is absolute hogwash nonsense. This program, well, why didn't we stop the Benghazi attack? Why didn't we stop the Boston attack? The answer is because this is just lazy, bureaucratic ineffectiveness, and I'll tell you what, it's based on, too, just so people know, this whole metadata thing is based on a concept, folks, 34 years old. 34, the Smith versus Maryland case. The metadata that they were talking about in that case doesn't even really exist anymore. They are evaporating and eviscerating every single...
Yeah, they're calling all of our privacy metadata when it has nothing to do with that, using that term to deceive people.
Right, and I've said to folks over and over again, here's what's going to happen. Let me paint a scenario for you quick here, because I was an investigator. I saw this from the inside. You give government information, it's going to be abused. It is not a matter of if, it is only a matter of when. What's going to happen is they're going to need, say, target A to get to target B. Target A didn't do anything.
I'll tell you what, stay there. 5 more minutes. We got to go to break. That's a short segment at the start of the hour. Come back and finish your story, and then we'll talk about the campaign briefly and the book that's coming out, and then let you go. And then, folks, I'm going to get into the travesty of foster care, the state-run agencies. 7-fold, the Justice Department admits, more dangerous to be in foster care than in anybody else's custody. And all the kids that are dying from parents who are having their kids taken because they get caught with a joint. And then the kid's dead. The state kills them. We'll be right back. Folks, coming up all over the country. It's happening all over the place in Austin. We didn't plan this. I wish I'd have known about it. I would have supported it. Overpasses for Obama's impeachment, nationwide protest, are a huge success. We've got photos and video going up. Our reporters are out there right now. We had a reporter going home sick today, and just saw these banner hangs, impeach Obama over the NSA. Very exciting. That's the type of message to send. Greenwald says NSA supporters exploiting terror threats to kill Fourth Amendment. Yeah, that's like saying a bear goes to the bathroom in the woods. Dead of night, Amber Alert scares Californians where they take over your phones and TVs turn on now. I mean, it's like out of Poltergeist or Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but it's the government taking over your phones. And continuing, documents reveal Holder's travel expenses exceeded $4 million in 4 years. Feds visit Michael Hastings' house day before his death. That's from our military sources. He said he was totally scared. This is a guy who'd been in heavy combat, in huge battles. They said they'd never seen a member of the press with that much courage. Yeah, because our evidence is Hastings wasn't who he appeared to be. He was probably CIA. But continuing, we're going to be looking at all of that and looking at the shame of foster care and some big developments on that front. But finishing up with the senior Secret Service agent on Obama's overseas trips. He is running for Congress. You can go to Bongino.com. Dan Bongino is here with us, a popular guest. And he was saying during the break, since when did freedom get so hard to sell? Well, since the media and the establishment sold out, but I think the awakening has started again. You were getting into the whole NSA situation and who they're targeting and what they're doing. It came out in Reuters yesterday that they're giving it even to local police. But you were telling me off air, police around America are really starting to wake up. So putting bookends on this interview, getting into NSA spying, what does that really mean from somebody that's been on the inside of this?
Yeah, I like telling stories, but analogies, because they make it real. They make it bleed for people. You have to make it real and material, or else they don't feel like they're losing anything. What's going to happen is one of these days, here's a scenario I'll paint for you. You're going to be needed in an investigation against your neighbor. Now, you've done nothing wrong, okay, but your neighbor stays involved in some terrorist act or whatever it may be, or something they deem national security. They're going to come to you, they're going to knock on your door, and they're going to say, hey, here's a email you sent to your buddy Tony, 15 years ago, saying that you were going to, punch some guy in the face because he wouldn't move his car out from your house. Did you know that's aggravated harassment? And by the way, if you don't tell us what we need against your neighbor, the information, then you're going down for aggravated harassment. Now, you may say, oh, that sounds crazy. Really, it sounded crazy that they would target conservative groups for their IRS, with their IRS histories as well. Folks, you give the government information, it will be abused. I am telling you, it is just a matter of time. It is not a matter of if. And one more point on this, Alex. What makes America great is you decide when the private self and the public self, where that line is, okay? This liberty versus security canard is a complete red herring nonsense, okay? You decide that. In totalitarian regimes, that's decided for you. Everything's public. They encourage parents to rat out on their kids, uncles to rat out on aunts. There's nothing private.
That's already starting here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. When they have access to your information, when you open your garage door in the morning, when I do, I know the public self begins, okay? Well, if you're doing nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Nonsense. We're all doing something wrong. We're human beings. We're all fallible, okay? We decide, as long as your wrongs don't infringe on the civil liberties of others, you're left alone. That's the deal we have here, right? When I open my garage door in the morning, I know the public self begins. If you keep going down this road you're going down now, that garage door is open all the time. There is no private you, and we are just like every other totalitarian.
Sure. Exactly. We don't live in glass houses because to be free, you've got to have privacy. Plus this NSA grid and all these hackers they've hired, they're on record that they can plant fake stuff in your digital file, or if you're running for office, use a medical issue you've got against you. They're on record already doing this. I mean, take all the governors and people they found with hookers, and I'm not saying that's a good thing, but they were sitting on all that until they wanted to burn somebody when they were exposing banking corruption. And so, again, it's going to be used selectively, and that's the word I've gotten from Congress, and it's come out the cloakroom has been bugged, is that the Justice Department is using people cheating on their wife 10 years ago, people joking around in an email saying, I want to kill my neighbor or whatever. They are using that for blackmail right now.
Right. The greatest commodity in Washington, D.C. is not the bankrupt Fed. It's not gold. It's information, folks. Information is the greatest, most valuable commodity you can have in the bubble of Washington, D.C. I promise you. You forfeit it and you give it up without a fight. I'm telling you, you're going to rue the day you failed to do something. You fight back, organize, do what you need to do, but you better get involved or you will regret the day. I promise you.
Well, here's another analogy. We hear about these fools. Who would go on Facebook and say, I'm going to Cancun for Christmas. I'll be gone 6 days. Here's where we're staying. And the woman, was, look, my husband just bought me a 10-carat diamond ring. Right. The thieves are waiting. They know what hotel you're at. They've already cased you. They break in your room and steal the ring. That's a real case. Let's expand. You go, I'm going to see my grandma for 2 days. Look what I got for Christmas. Again, where you live, the thieves come and break in your house. It's not that you've done something wrong. Bad people will use your lack of privacy to abuse you. There's a reason we lock our doors. There's a reason we pull our shades. There's a reason we have fences and walls. It's so that bad people have to go through something before they get to us, and they don't have intel on us, rendering us defenseless.
Right, and they come at you from two different arguments. A lot of these so-called, Republicans who support this, they come at you from the, it's going to make us safer argument, which is nonsense. It's garbage. Again, it's investigative laziness. And then the liberal side comes at you from, it doesn't matter, the end result's the same, but they come at you with the argument that the anointed ones, as Thomas Sowell used to call them, in his book, Vision of the Anointed ones should run your life, should have access to all your information because they're just so much smarter than the stupid people like us, Alex. Either way, it doesn't matter. The end result is the same. The personal you is never personal. It's all public. And again, that you might as well, that whatever, that flag doesn't mean to you what it means to me. If you believe my information is your information just because you say it's so and you've declared it constitutional, it's not. Read the document. I assure you, it's pretty clear on those on those portions. Your personal effects should be secure, and right now they're not. I'm not giving the key to my house to any government official for any reason whatsoever.
Well, that's the other side. Look how secretive government's getting while telling us that we shouldn't have any secrets. It is incredibly transparent. Final question. Folks can go to your campaign and learn more. Foot soldiers there on the ground in Maryland. Absolutely got to get behind this guy and the person he's running against. Just absolutely needs to be defeated. Bongino.com. Another Ron Paul in the Congress, folks. In your gut, do you think we're going to turn the tide? Because I know historically it's only when things get really bad that people finally get out of denial. Or is the tyranny so sophisticated and has known the awakening was coming that they've already organized themselves to be able to stop us? I mean, what does your gut tell you about this fight?
You know, Alex, I'm always an optimist, and I've seen it. It's bad. It's ugly. It's ugly on both sides. But, you know, we've been through a lot, and I do believe that some divine providence has led this country to be so different. There's no reason we should be as exceptional as we are other than the fact that there's got to be some heavenly intervention here. I think we're going to fix this. It's going to take some time. But, folks, remember, there's only power in now. You have to do something, not talk. You have to get involved. If we're just talking, that's called whining. We have to get involved. I took a huge hit to my life to do this. I'm not asking for your sympathy or your sorrow, but I'm saying do something. Talk is not enough. So please get involved. And yes, I think we are going to change it because, listen, liberty should not be such a tough sell. Certainly hasn't been for me out there on the stump. We've really changed a lot of mine.
That's right. People tend to overplan things and then rationalize. If you know it's right to stand against something, whatever it is, gut up, do it, whether it's small, medium, or large. Little things, you know, grow into big things. Commit to freedom. Commit to American liberty that made us so great, and we can go back to being a prosperous, good nation. It's time for the good men and women who've been doing nothing to stand up, and it's time for people that have been doing something to redouble their efforts, because we can clearly see where this road is going is not a good place. We need to turn this around. Dan, thank you so much for the time, and I can't wait for you to get into Congress.
Thanks, Alex. It was an honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye. All right, folks, there he goes. That was a good interview. It was only going to be like 20 minutes long, but I held him into this hour because it's just a great guy. You can tell he's a great guy, and you can tell that he's got a lot of courage, and they're breaking in his house. They're breaking in his business. They're breaking in his car. They're messing with his wife. And, man, all I can tell you is that I really worry about that, because if I ever catch somebody physically threatening my family, it's over. And I think they know that. That's the one thing I've got to control myself with these people. I am so sick of the scum that have overrun this country. And you heard him. He said there are cliques, bipartisan, of technocrats and insiders and lobbyists and special interests that literally know what they're doing. And they want to block us from having them bankrupt the country so they can get even richer at our expense. They're putting a police state in so we can never get the country back. It is a conscious move, a conspiracy. There's thousands of charges per city a year of conspiracy to do this, conspiracy to do that. But, oh, when government does it, it doesn't exist. No, there is a globalist corporate conspiracy against common sense and against individualism and against the family. I mean, turn on television and the dramas and movies. It's all a bunch of anti-family, anti-male, anti-liberty bull. Because the only people that are allowed to be male are the people that work for the system, and they're all super male, trying to dominate us. But then we're all supposed to just cower down here and run around in fear. Well, I'm not doing it, okay? You get a double middle finger from me to the New World Order, and I'm sorry to talk like that, but that's what it comes down to. I am going down with the ship. I am not bowing to you murderers. Because let me tell you something. Bowing to them is giving consent to all their crimes, and that's why I have no fear, folks. These people are hurting innocents all over the world, and I'm sick of it being done in my name, and I am not going to be part of it. I do not need those spiritual bowling balls hanging around my neck.